Topic of the day yesterday was defund or not to defund as far as police departments in and around the country. Brian Sullivan, president of the Nassau County Correctional Officers Benevolent Association, nice enough to give us a couple of minutes on a busy Tuesday morning. 50A and everything else coming into play here. Brian, great to have you. And, I'll tell you, I'm no member of law enforcement, but I could just use my common sense. If you're looking to strip 50A, that's a section of the civil rights law, folks, that deems the personal records of police officers, firefighters, correctional officers confidential, subject to inspection or review without the officer's permission. You better be careful. Common sense tells me that could have a major interference as far as any investigation is concerned. I kind of correlated, Brian, and welcome aboard, I kind of correlated to the bail reform laws. Witness protection information and all that stuff leaked out, detrimental to any type of case. That is a correlation that is real. Give me your thoughts here.
Jay, you're 100% on that with correlating this with the bail reform. This is brought to you by the same people that brought us bail reform. This is all about eroding law enforcement in New York State. It's all about empowering criminals, empowering people that are charged with crimes. It's about a legislature in New York State whose constituents are obviously the criminals of the state, because the tail is wagging the dog here, as I've said several times. New York City progressive liberals are calling the shots in all of New York State, and now you have, with all of this unrest that's gone on because of this incident that happened, this ridiculous incident that happened in Minneapolis, and you have normal protests and things like that, which everyone can see. But obviously they were co-opted by anarchists and the Antifa types, and now with all of this unrest, and everybody's afraid to be caught up in the middle of this, and you have people all over Long Island are taking their American flags down off the front of their houses because they don't want to be labeled as racist or right-wingers or something by some of these crazies that have joined this protest. But now you have the progressive liberals in the legislature of New York State are seizing the opportunity to bring out every piece of insane legislation that they've tried to get passed over the last 10, 15, 20 years, and they're just running it up the flagpole, and everybody in the legislature is saluting it. You have Long Island senators that don't necessarily agree with it, but they're going to vote for it because they don't want to be vilified by their cohorts in the Assembly and the Senate. And you have people that just don't go for this stuff at all. They're afraid of protest. They're afraid of being labeled. They're afraid of being primaried. They're afraid of losing their positions. Nobody has their own free opinion anymore. Everybody just has to go along with this insanity. Otherwise, you're going to be labeled as something. Now you have 50A, which, as you said, was put there as a protection for people in law enforcement to make sure that your personal information doesn't get out. Say you're working with gangbangers all day, or in the jails. In my particular case, you're working on some pretty dangerous floors with dangerous people that are predators and manipulators, and now they're able, through the FOIL law, to get personal information from you. Now it appears that the bill that was put out, it says that it will redact any personal information, your home address, your social security number. But I got to tell you right now, everybody that wears a uniform and a badge in New York State is pretty wary about a file clerk or an attorney somewhere that's doing FOIL work, allowing out through the FOIL law where your kid goes to school or where your wife works or something along those lines. But even if it were to be an ironclad thing where none of your information gets out, the bigger issue with 50A that all of us in law enforcement have right now is the fact that any allegations that are made against you, whether they're false allegations, unfounded allegations, or some predator sitting in a cell or sitting in a gang house somewhere just wants to make an allegation because he wants to file and sue the municipality. I've said this several times before. In the Nassau County Jail and in Nassau County in general, there have been times in the past, many times, where inmates will file litigation against a particular officer, a particular crew, a particular supervisor because they don't like them, and the county does not want to litigate. They don't want to pay say $100,000, $150,000 to litigate this case out, they'll settle out of court with this inmate for his allegation. They'll give him $2,500. They'll give him $5,000, and it's all a numbers game. So now you have a case where an officer or a crew of officers or whoever it may be, later on down the road, when some incident may happen, they can foil all of this stuff and say, well, you worked this bad floor and you have 5 allegations against you over the last 5 years. You must be a bad guy, even though they're all unfounded or unsubstantiated allegations. Things like that can be used against you in promotions, in job choices, or if you leave to go to another job. You know, say you're a Nassau County Correction Officer, you want to become a Nassau County Police Officer or a federal agent or something like that. You have 5 allegations against you and I've seen it from inmates who are doing life sentences or getting ready to go away for life sentences, and they're just filing frivolous lawsuits because they want to put money in their commissary account. I've seen it. I could name you probably 25 different examples of it right now, but this is the stuff that the legislature wants to do. All of your allegations, founded or not, unfounded, whatever it is, we're just going to paint you with this broad brush. And over this past weekend, I'm part of the Downstate Correction Coalition. It's Nassau, Suffolk, Westchester, New York City, New York State correction officers unions, and we actually have a partnership with the New York State Troopers, Tom Mungier, and the New York State investigators. We formulated a memo to all of our New York State legislators, obviously in opposition to this, and we said, if you're going to push this forward, we demand transparency be a two-way street. That if you want all of your law enforcement officers in New York State to be subject to all of this nonsense under the guise of transparency, how about we write a bill that includes you, the New York State Legislature, the Assembly, the Senate, the Governor? Let's have all of your founded, unfounded allegations that have been made against you, every complaint that's been made against a legislator in New York State, every ethics violation complaint, every ethics hearing that, by the way, are protected from public view right now. The ethics committee hearings of the New York State Legislature are protected. Okay, we want transparency. We're going to go down the line. Let's have complete transparency. We still have Malcolm Smith, the former leader of the Senate, and John Sampson. They're both sitting in jail right now for corruption charges. Dean Skelos just got out of jail. We know all about Joe Bruno's legal problems over the years. How many legislators in New York State have had to leave because of corruption? The Moreland Commission from the governor. The governor disbanded the Moreland Commission, on a dime because of what was going on. How about we make all of those minutes of all those meetings and all those investigations open to the public under the FOIA law? All right, we're all going to be completely transparent here, but the governor and the legislators don't have to worry about gangbangers and Bloods and Crips and MS-13 showing up on their front doors or where their kids go to school.
Brian, let me just say this, and I got to run. We'll have you on again because it's a big topic. I'll give you a final word here, but this really is about the progressive movement. We have spoken about this. The activists, the so-called progressive politicians, they have pursued this 50A reform. This has been going on a long time, 7 years, I believe, almost 7 years, actually. And this is really about demonizing police officers and correction officers in all that has occurred. The deaths of individuals in police custody and the demonizing of these departments. And I'll say this, it's about leadership. It's about Mayor de Blasio as far as New York City and what occurred last week. A major component is poor leadership. And I really kind of correlated it to the governor when I had him on last week, in that when you have a coach who has lost his voice as far as his team, that's when change has to be made. That's what you're seeing right now in New York City, sir. And I give you the final word, 30 seconds, my friend.
I appreciate it, Jay, and that's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. And we said about it in the beginning, this is the same people that brought you bail reform. It's the same people that want criminals, murderers, and rapists released into the street. It's about demonizing police officers, correction officers, anybody with a uniform on, and all of this has been co-opted by liberal, progressive socialists in New York State that hate law enforcement, that hate cops, that hate correction officers, and they're using this unfortunate incident that happened in Minneapolis to co-opt a message and just shove all this stuff down people's throats. And honest protests and honest anger about things that have gone on, which we could certainly have another show about and talk about statistics of what really goes on in this country. Look at what just happened in Chicago over the weekend. It was the highest the murder thing that happened in Chicago in years. But this is all about just defunding cops, getting rid of cops. We hate cops. We want everybody loose in the streets, and it's all about a socialist, anarchist agenda, and that's it.
Sir, I look forward to the next time. Big discussion. It's not going away, and we'll keep furthering it. Thank you so much.